Okay, hello and welcome once again. This is Dan Swiskers from vemonline.net. Today we will talk about arms anatomy. In particular, we are talking about muscles. So arm meaning region between your elbow and your shoulder. There is one muscle in posterior region, Triceps Brachii. There are three muscles in anterior region. There's Biceps Brachii, there's Coracobrachialis, and then there's Brachialis. So hopefully we'll be able to go through all of them. So Triceps Brachii basically primarily responsible for extension of the arm, and Biceps Brachii primarily responsible for flexion of the arm, right? Biceps Brachii is not the main flexor of the arm. A lot of people would think that, but actually in reality, Brachialis, which lies underneath Biceps Brachii, is way more stronger. It is pretty much the same case what we have in the shoulder region with pectorals and subscapularis. You would think that pectorals are the strongest muscles of the chest region, but they are not. I mean, if we're talking about internal rotation, pectorals are not the strongest internal rotators of the shoulder joint. Subscapularis is, and so basically same thing here. Most visible muscle obviously is Biceps Brachii, and you would think that that's the main flexor, but not really. Biceps Brachii will cross two joints. That's another thing. It does cross elbow joint, and it does cross shoulder joint as well. So it doesn't just flex the elbow joint, it does flex the shoulder joint as well, right? So that's another thing to think about. And Coracobrachialis will cross only the shoulder joint, right? We talked about Coracobrachialis a little bit last time. We'll review that one more time. So the Coracobrachialis, we talked about coracoid process, right? So Coracobrachialis, Biceps Brachii, and pectoralis minor, all of them do attach to a coracoid process. We'll take a look at that in a bit. All right, so here we can see the all these four muscles on the right side, okay? And as well, we can see nerves. Usually I don't really emphasize on the nerves, on the innervating aspect, but this time I really would like to talk about it a little bit at least, because as I said, this is really good way to start learning anatomy. Arm is really easy to see. You can look at it, you can palpate it easily, and this is really good way to start talking about not just about bony landmarks, muscle fibers, but nerves and blood vessels and on and so on and so forth as well. It's really quite simple for brachium, which is the arm, right? So brachium in Latin means what we would say in English, what we would call arm, and antebrachium is the forearm. Brachium is the region between your elbow and your shoulder, and antebrachium is region between your elbow and your wrist. A radial nerve, all posterior compartment, and musculocutaneous nerve for anterior compartment, and that's it really. So I mean, these two nerves already, it would be really good for you to start memorizing nerves, and I would suggest to start with these two because it's really quite easy. Let me show you them actually. Let's zoom in a bit. So here we can see Biceps Brachii. We can see the long head wrapping around the shoulder joint, attaching on top of the joint, the supraglenoid tubercle, and the short head attaching to coracoid process, which I just mentioned just a while ago. So this is Biceps Brachii. Let's get rid of that. And right underneath, we can see nerves, right? These are actually, this is ulnar nerve, and this is median nerve. So these nerves actually will innervate muscles below below elbow joint, so antebrachial muscle, so muscles of the forearm. This one right there, that's musculocutaneous nerve. You can see it goes right across the whole arm, and this nerve, of course, it will have branches, it will branch out. This nerve does innervate all these muscles, all of them. So the Coracobrachialis, Brachialis, and Biceps Brachii. All these three muscles are innervated by musculocutaneous nerve. Let me write that down for you. So musculocutaneous nerve. Musculocutaneous nerve, okay. Actually, it's spelled wrong. Cutaneous. Sorry, that's what I thought. No mistake. Musculocutaneous nerve. That's for anterior compartment, anterior, and radial nerve. For posterior. So musculocutaneous nerve, that's the Biceps Brachii, Coracobrachialis, and Brachialis. Radial nerve, Triceps Brachii. 4 muscles, that's it. 4 muscles, and that's the whole arm. Let's take a look at that one more time. So anterior compartment, anterior meaning muscles that are found at the front of the body, right? So at the front of the humerus. Here we have Biceps Brachii, Brachialis, and Coracobrachialis. So all these 3 are anterior compartment muscles. Posterior compartment, only 1 muscle, Triceps Brachii. There has been this debate going on for quite a while. There are some scientists, some anatomy gurus, and they think that these actually should be divided. This muscle actually should be divided in 3 separate muscles, which is, I mean, I could actually agree with that, because they have slightly different functions. They have obviously we can see that they have different proximal attachments, and then they all will merge into this common tendon, and it will insert at the ulna. But really, at the beginning, they're all separate, and actually they do perform different motions. And actually, there has been this new study where they actually found that long head of the triceps is actually innervated by a axillary nerve, not radial nerve. So there are some differences between these heads, and I can totally see that it could be divided into 3 separate muscles. But I mean, commonly we will call this as Triceps Brachii, Triceps Brachii muscle, and that's the only muscle of the posterior compartment. Let's go back to this. So Triceps Brachii is the let me actually write all that down for you guys. Anterior compartment, posterior compartment. Okay, let's name all of them. So anterior compartment, all of these muscles will be innervated by musculocutaneous nerve, right? So there we have biceps Brachii, Brachialis, and Coracobrachialis. Radial nerve, let's go with blue. Radial nerve, that's posterior compartment, and that's Triceps Brachii. Triceps brachii muscle. Let's take a look at the landmarks, bony landmarks. What do we need to know to be able to talk about the anatomy, the actual anatomy? Let's start with the biceps, biceps brachii attachments. So as we already talked about the coracoid process, here we can see it right there. This hook-like extension of the scapula. So this outgrowth from scapula, which is called coracoid process. Once again, 3 muscles will attach to that. Let me show you what I mean by that. Okay, here we go. Right there. So this coracoid process, this hook-like outgrowth of the scapula, out of the scapula. So we have first of all, so that's first rib, second rib, third, fourth, and fifth. Pectoralis minor attaching to coracoid process. Coracobrachialis and Biceps brachii short head. So they will all attach to coracoid process. So biceps short head and coracobrachialis going in this direction, and pectoralis minor going in this direction. Okay. So coracoid process. Try to remember this one. Coracoid process, then of course humerus, shaft of the humerus. We started talking about biceps, so let's actually finish with that. The other structure you should know is, let's get rid of humerus right there. So that's the glenoid fossa. Glenoid fossa has two, like, I mean, you can't really see it on this model here, but there are these little outgrowths, one at the top and one at the bottom, which are called tubercles. So any type of like a hill on the bony on the bone is going to usually be called tubercle, and the one on the top is called superior or supraglenoid tubercle, and the one below is going to be called infraglenoid tubercle. And we can see that one head of the triceps actually is attaching to that infraglenoid tubercle. Supraglenoid tubercle, that's attachment for a long head of the biceps, right? So that we saw that the biceps tendon goes right through this, right through this sulcus here, and it wraps around the shoulder joint and will attach at the top of the shoulder joint, in particular supraglenoid tubercle. Let's write that down. Supraglenoid tubercle and infraglenoid tubercle. So at the top, obviously, top, that means superior. Once again, superior, superior. Superior direction going towards the floor, that's inferior direction. Inferior. So here we have supraglenoid tubercle, and here we have infraglenoid tubercle. Supraglenoid tubercle attachment for long head of the biceps. Infraglenoid tubercle attachment for long head of the triceps. So that's actually the long head. So which is actually quite easy to remember. So these glenoid tubercles, long head of the both muscles, long heads will attach to these tubercles. So supraglenoid tubercle once again for long head of the biceps, and inferior glenoid tubercle for long head of the triceps. Okay, so that's that. So coracoid process, supraglenoid tubercle and infraglenoid tubercle. So far so good. Of course, shaft of the humerus, we will see that right there. So that's the Coracobrachialis. Coracobrachialis does attach the medial and so to say medial superior half of the shaft of the humerus at the medial side. Right, we can clearly see that here. Biceps. We'll see that. We'll take a look at that in a bit. And that's the brachialis muscle, and does attach out of the inferior half of the shaft of the humerus. Actually, more kind of like anterolateral surface of the humerus. Let's go back to biceps. That's what I wanted to show you guys here. Right there. So biceps does attach the radius, in particular radial tuberosity. So there is, once again, this model doesn't really show those tuberosities that well, but you can see that there's like a little bit like a hill here, and that's that tuberosity. So that is called radial tuberosity. And then there's going to be ulnar tuberosity, which is right there. Ulnar tuberosity, that's for brachialis. So they are right there at the anterior surface. They are going to be two very distinguished, very distinct these tuberosities. Radial tuberosity, right at the anterior proximal radius, and ulnar tuberosity at the proximal anterior ulna. Radial tuberosity, right there. Biceps, both heads will merge into one at the end. Both of them will merge together, and this common tendon will attach to this tuberosity on the radius, which is called radial tuberosity once again, and brachialis muscle will insert into the ulnar tuberosity. Triceps. Let's start with the long head. So long head, obviously here we can see that this is the longest head, and it goes straight up to the scapula. That's the only head that does attach the scapula, and it does attach the infraglenoid tubercle once again. Then there is medial and lateral head now of the triceps. That's it's a shame that I cannot separate all of them. Really, this muscle should be divided into 3 parts, really, but this model doesn't allow me to do that. Let's remove these guys here, because medial head is not very well visible. It is kind of hidden, so we can see that we can clearly see lateral head and long head. Medial head is not. It's kind of hiding there. Sometimes it is actually called the deep head, right? So it's like you can see only just a tiny portion of it. So this tiny bit of the triceps muscle right here, hiding right underneath lateral and long head of the triceps, is called medial or deep head of the triceps. Lateral head clearly at the lateral side, and long head attaching to the scapula, and all of them will merge together and form this common tendon, which is going to be inserting into ulna. Okay, and actually this process, this tuberosity of the ulna is called olecranon process. So that's another name you should probably at least try to remember. Let's write that down. Actually, no, let's write all those tuberosities. Let me move it somehow so it's better visible a bit better. Yeah, somehow like that. I think that's pretty good. Okay, right there. That's pretty good. Okay, so let's break it all down. So let's start with like the basics. So this portion here, this region between shoulder and elbow is called brachium. Brachium. This portion here, this region between your elbow and your wrist is called antebrachium. Brachium or brachium. I have seen different ways to write this. So brachium. Really, we're talking about brachium, which is the arm. This is the arm, and this is the forearm. So arm does have 4 muscles total. There is anterior compartment, which consists of biceps brachii, brachialis, and coracobrachialis. Posterior compartment, Triceps Brachii. Which, as I said, really it should be divided into 3 separate muscles. It totally makes sense to do that. So some very important structures here, very important parts. So we can actually see a little bit of this, a little bit of the scapula here, right there. That's coracoid process. That you should remember, coracoid. And then, of course, we have humerus, humeral head, humeral neck. Then we have shaft of the humerus. So Coracobrachialis comes straight off the coracoid process, and it will insert into the kind of like right there, medial proximal shaft of the humerus. As we go lower, the brachialis muscle will actually originate from kind of like anterolateral surface, actually, anterolateral surface of the distal half of the humerus, and it will insert into the ulnar tuberosity right there. So this structure is important right there. We can actually see you can see there's a little bit of this kind of like a bump right there. That's ulnar tuberosity. And then we have radial tuberosity on radius. Humerus, ulna, radius. Ulna on the medial side. Well, that's talking anatomical position when your arms are supinated, right? So when your arms are rotated outwards, ulna is going to be on the medial side. Radius is going to be on the lateral side. Radius rotates around ulna. Radius rotates back and forth on ulna like this. And soon we'll see what exactly, which muscle does that. And Biceps Brachii is part of that internal rotation of the elbow. Let's go back to this image. Let's take a look at this one more time. And there, all four muscles together. Coracoid process on top. Supraglenoid tubercle for long head of the biceps. Biceps does insert into the radius, radial tuberosity, right there. And actually here we can see that there's this like aponeurosis that extends out of the distal fibers of the Biceps Brachii. Biceps Brachii does connect to this aponeurosis as well. So it's basically sort of like a fascial continuation of biceps, actually. Let's go layer down. Brachialis, right there. Coracobrachialis, sorry. Off of the coracoid process into the medial shaft of the humerus, proximal half approximately. Brachialis, distal half of the humerus, anterolateral surface, and it does insert into the ulnar bone, ulnar tuberosity, right there. Let's turn it around. Posterior compartment, Triceps Brachii. So long head of triceps, long head of Triceps Brachii originates off of the scapula, infraglenoid tubercle of the scapula. Lateral head and medial head originate off of the shaft of the humerus. As I said, it's not that easy to see the medial head, which is, for that reason, it is called deep head as well. But well, maybe you can try to remember that the lateral head does occupy upper half of posterior surface of the shaft of the humerus. So this head here on the lateral side originates from the upper half of the humerus, and the deep head or medial head does occupy pretty much like the whole shaft. A little bit more on the medial side though. So basically, the lateral head lies right over on top of the medial head, and that's why it is attaching at the top, more kind of like top portion of the posterior shaft of the humerus. All right, let's go back to. You can turn your mics on. Let's have a quick discussion. So far, any questions? I really wanted to use that three-dimensional human as much as possible, so you can get a little bit better idea, and then we'll break it all down in bits and pieces just in a bit. So far so good, understandable.
Yeah, it's very easy to understand.
So once again, posterior compartment triceps, anterior compartment meaning at the front of the body, back of the body. Anterior compartment biceps, coracobrachialis and brachialis. Brachialis is the main flexor of the forearm. Don't confuse that. So this it's really good to put that put these little bits of like this significant information register that right at the beginning. For the chest, once again, subscapularis, main internal rotator, not your pectorals. For your elbow, for flexion, brachialis is the main flexor. Biceps brachii is not the main flexor. It's just just doesn't have that leverage. Biceps brachii does cross two joints, very significant, right? Elbow joint and the shoulder joint, both joints. Triceps brachii does cross two joints as well, but only the long head of the triceps will attach the scapula. So only the long head of the triceps will cross elbow joint and shoulder joint. Medial head and lateral head originate from the shaft of the humerus, posterior shaft of the humerus. So they don't cross shoulder. Only long head. Long head of the biceps, long head of the triceps, right? So long head of the biceps on top of the shoulder joint, long head of the triceps below shoulder joint, and we call them tubercles. So supraglenoid tubercle and infraglenoid tubercle. That word glenoid, it comes from glenoid fossa, right? So humerus, that's the articulation, right? So humeral head and glenoid fossa of the scapula. So that's that cavity where humeral head does attach. That's that cup that will cup the humeral head, and it has this bony outgrowth at the top and bony outgrowth at the bottom, and of course, I mean. It really depends how much you're using your arms, how much you're actually working out, or let's say like you're just like your job is just physical in nature. You're a construction worker or a farmer or whatever. These tiny bony outgrowths will keep growing because bones morph according to stress. I gave an example about the deltoid tuberosity. So same thing, right? So like, for example, farmers have huge deltoid tuberosities because there's this, like constant yanking on it, constant, you work constantly, right? So you keep pulling on that tuberosity and it just keeps growing and growing and growing. Same with these glenoid tubercles. So supraglenoid tubercle, infraglenoid tubercle. If you're using your arms a lot, they'll be bigger. So like let's say bodybuilders, people that work out quite a bit, they will have these tuberosities on these particular people are going to be bigger, right? Coracoid process right underneath the lateral half, underneath lateral half of the clavicle. It is palpable, so that gives attachment to Coracobrachialis and short head of the biceps, as well as the pectoralis minor. So 3 muscles attached to that. And try to once again try to memorize that. Right, it's really good way to put all that together as we talk about everything in 3-dimensionally. First of all, right. So let's go layer by layer. The most superficial layer, biceps. 1 layer down, brachialis, which is actually you can kind of feel it when you palpate like one head, other head, and right underneath, right there you will feel there's another muscle belly, and that's Coracobrachialis right there. You'll feel it. It's actually right there. I feel it on myself. And brachialis right deep to the biceps brachii, the most powerful flexor of the elbow. Because it has that leverage. It's quite short, and that's why it has that lever. It has that lever action. That's why it can produce more power, right? Triceps, medial head, as well called the deep head. You can see a little piece here, probably right there. Actually, right there. That's what it is. Right there. This one. and then we have the lateral head and the long head, which does attach the infraglenoid tubercle, and that's the whole arm. Let's take a look at Nikita Vizhniak's those origin, insertion, action, like basically that summarization one more time. We'll just do quick review because we started a little bit later, so I just want to run through this a little bit faster. You can rewatch it one more time if you want to memorize it. We'll do just a quick rerun, and then we'll talk about muscle actions. Okay, and I think if time allows, I'll talk a little bit about the training part, which is probably going to be interesting for all this. There are very specific ways to train, for example, biceps, how you isolate it, and how in particular how you train a long head and how you train short head. Same for triceps, actually, right? So which is, once again, it really should be, it's as a collection, okay, triceps brachii, all right, but really there are 3 separate muscles. And there's evidence that long head of the triceps is actually innervated not just by radial nerve but by auxiliary nerve as well, which is completely separate innervation. And there you go. Really, I mean, it's kind of like a separate muscle. Really, that long head should be, at least that long head should be divided, so that those two heads, the medial lateral head, okay, that could be like one muscle, but the long head of the triceps is pretty much like a separate muscle. Really, it's pretty individual there. Let's go back to screen share. Let's quickly go through. Let's quickly go over the summarization, origin, insertion, action, nerve supply. Nerve supply, really simple. I mean, you know, musculocutaneous nerve for anterior compartment, radial nerve for posterior compartment. Quite easy to remember. You know, radial nerve, triceps, musculocutaneous nerve, biceps brachii, brachialis, coracobrachialis. So that's it. That muscle innervation is covered. Action, we will go over that a little more into detail. I'll go back to the video and then we'll talk about that. Let's go back to screen share. Let's quickly do a quick review. Actually, you know what? Let's keep this. All right, so let's start with the biceps brachii right there. So origin, red, long head and short head. Long head, supraglenoid tubercle. I think we should probably zoom in a little bit more. I think that's better, huh? It should be a little bit better. Right there. So it's origin. We always go with red. Long head, supraglenoid tubercle. As well, glenohumeral labrum. Don't really. I mean, don't worry about that. Remember, supraglenoid tubercle for long head. That's good enough. Short head, coracoid process. Right there. That's the short head attachment, and that's the long head attachment. Insertion, blue. Radial tuberosity, right there. Radial tuberosity. That's that bump on the radius. As well, bicipital aponeurosis. That's what I said. That's kind of like fascial extension of the biceps brachii muscle. It wraps around the cubital fossa. It wraps around the elbow, kind of going more kind of like distally, medially, kind of like that. Action. We will review all actions, on action for every single muscle one more time. I'll switch to video, but let's talk about it right here. So flexion, as well supination of the elbow, as well flexion of the shoulder, because it does cross two joints. Right? So it does cross shoulder joint and it does cross elbow joint. So flexion of the shoulder, flexion of the elbow, as well supination. Supination meaning you rotate the radius around the ulna, going in medial direction. So that's supination. Opposite way, that would be pronation. Sorry. Actually, supination is the supination is going in this direction right there, and pronation is going to be just the opposite. Musculocutaneous nerve, nerve root C5, C6, and that's blood supply. I mean, synergists. I mean, that's not that significant. Synergists. I mean, that's quite. That's common sense, really. Flexion of the elbow, brachialis, brachioradialis. Brachioradialis, we did not talk about this muscle yet. That's one of the muscles of the forearm, but obviously brachialis. This is the most important flexor of the elbow. For supination, supinator, which is another muscle of the forearm. We didn't really talk about that. I haven't talked about that one yet. Flexion of the shoulder, deltoid anterior fibers of the deltoid, as well pectoralis major, superior fibers. Right? So, as we remember, pectoralis major has three parts. So it has upper portion, middle portion, and lower portion. Upper portion will produce flexion as well. As well, Coracobrachialis, and that will flex the shoulder as well, because it does cross shoulder joint. It comes off of the scapula, and it does insert into the shaft of the humerus. So that's Biceps Brachii. Let's move on. Brachialis. So as you can see, it goes quite deep. That's really like that's the deepest layer of the arm. Origin, anterior distal half of the humerus. Anterior meaning front of the body, distal meaning away from your core. So this would be proximal direction. This would be distal direction. Anterior distal half of the humerus. So we divide the humerus in two halves. So anterior distal half of the humerus, right there. And I would actually say the anterolateral surface, anterolateral, just to be a little bit more specific. Insertion, once again, blue, ulnar tuberosity, right there. So this bump here on the ulna. As well, coronoid process of the ulna. Don't worry about coronoid process. Remember ulnar tuberosity. That's the main attachment point. Action. Flexion of the elbow. There's nothing else it can do. I mean, because first of all, if actually, see, that's the thing. If brachialis would attach the radius, it could create some type of rotational movement as well. But since it does attach only to ulna, it can do only flexion. Elbow has three joints, really. Okay, actually, you know what? This is quite interesting. Let me show you this. So when we talk about elbow, we should be talking about three joints. It's not just one joint. So there is joint between radius and humerus. There is joint between ulna and humerus. Okay, so that right there we can see that olecranon wraps around the humeral bone, right? And then there is actually a joint between ulna and radius. Okay, so there are three joints really. Radius rotates around ulna. You can see that this radial head, it looks like a disc, right? And that's what it does. It rotates around ulna. That's how we can create this pronation and supination. Ulna can go only up and down. There is no rotation whatsoever. We can see that here, that it cups. It cups the humerus. Like, see, it cups. It has this like a hook, like a wrench almost. So there's no rotation possible. There can be only flexion extension. That's it, right? So as I said, if brachialis would attach the radius, I'm just speculating. Okay, so like if it would attach the radius, there would be some sort of a rotation possible as well. But since it does attach only to ulna, only flexion is possible. That's it. So that there's no rotational movement possible. That's it. And brachialis, once again, really remember this one. It is the main flexor of the elbow, main flexor. So that's the flexion. This is the flexion, really. And once again, musculocutaneous nerve, as well radial nerve. It's, I mean, you know, once again, let's not get into such detail. Remember that the musculocutaneous nerve basically is responsible for all anterior compartment. There are going to be some other nerve branches that will contribute to this innervation, but mostly it is musculocutaneous nerve for all these three muscles, and radial nerve mostly for the posterior compartment, which is triceps. And as I said, a new study showed that there are actually branches off of the other nerves that would innervate parts of the Triceps Brachii. For example, long head of the triceps there's actually a study that shows that axillary nerve innervates it. But you know, I mean, once again, let's not get into that. Let's not get into great details. Just remember musculocutaneous nerve and radius nerve, radial nerve. That's it. Coracobrachialis, origin coracoid process. Once again, right there, coracoid process. Insertion, medial shaft of humerus, right there. So Wisniak says middle 1/3. I guess I would argue with that. I would probably say proximal half. But I mean, you know, and of course anatomical variation is possible. So really put something in the middle. You know, like, I mean, like it's probably both of us would be right. Anyways, for some people, it would actually extend a little bit more distally. For some people, it would actually originate a little bit more proximally. But just remember that the medial shaft and approximately middle to a proximal half or a middle third, something like that. So it's this region right there. That's where it will insert. Action. This is, you know, not the strongest muscle really, so this action is not very strong. First of all, okay, it's muscle fibers. Like here in this image, it looks quite big, but in reality, it's not that big. Coracobrachialis is quite stringy. It's really small muscle. It does flexion and adduction of the shoulder, but it's not that strong. I mean, it will contribute to biceps brachii, it will contribute to anterior deltoid, some other flexors of the arm, like pectorals, upper portion of the pectorals. But that's pretty much, that's all it does, really. So really what it does, it does bring your arm under sort of like 45-degree angle, kind of like this. up and towards your towards the center of your body, which is like, I mean, if you think about fiber direction, that's what it is, right? So just connect these 2 points, it will bring humerus in this direction. So 45-degree angle up and towards the middle. Nerve, once again, musculocutaneous nerve. And that was the anterior compartment. Posterior compartment, only one muscle. Triceps Brachii. Origin. 3 heads, okay, so long head. As I said, this is quite easy to remember. Biceps brachii and triceps brachii, both long heads of both of these muscles will attach to scapula. So long head of the biceps superior, supraglenoid tubercle, long head of the triceps, infraglenoid tubercle. Right there, that's what we can see right there. Infraglenoid tubercle, as well neck of scapula. You know, don't worry about it. Remember, infraglenoid tubercle. That's the significant attachment. Lateral head. We're talking about this one right there. That's lateral head. Upper half of posterior surface of shaft of humerus. Okay, there's another bony landmark that probably I should mention. I didn't. Radial groove. Maybe next time. Radial groove right there. Which is, what do you think? Why is it called radial groove? It's, I mean, like, once again, the name pretty much says it all. It's kind of a common sense once again. So radial groove should be occupied by radial nerve, right? So radial nerve. And just above this radial groove, so if we could imagine, if we would layer down, so that'll be approximately kind of like how the nerve goes. And just above the nerve, basically just above radial nerve, lateral head of the Triceps Brachii originates from. Deep head, medial head, deep head, posterior shaft of the humerus. It's right underneath both of these guys, so I mean, we can't really see it. Let's use, I don't know, like, let's use like yellow, but it will occupy pretty much like the whole shaft. It will come off of the posterior shaft of the humerus, more on the medial side though. It's kind of like that. All these 3 heads will get together and they will insert at the olecranon process of the ulna, right there. Olecranon process. So humerus and ulna. Once again, so there's no radial attachment for this muscle. So that's and that's the reason why there is no rotation possible. Radius rotates around ulna, so that's how we get that rotational movement. Once again, I'm sort of repeating myself, but really try to imagine that 3-dimensionally. Ulna and humerus, there's only a flexion extension pattern possible. That's it, and that's what we see here. Action, extension of the elbow, and that's it really. Which is triceps is prime mover. Prime mover meaning the most important, like the strongest muscle that will produce this type of movement. For the flexion of the elbow, as I mentioned that before, brachialis. That's the one that. Let's go back. Brachialis, this guy here, that's the main flexor. So this is the prime flexor of the elbow, elbow joint. Prime extensor of the elbow joint is Triceps Brachii. And you know, it's quite obvious. It's such a large muscle, right? And there are going to be other muscles that will produce extension. They are actually muscles. We will consider them antebrachial muscles, so muscles of the forearm. So there are going to be other muscles that will produce extension, but Triceps Brachii is definitely the strongest muscle that will produce extension. As well, it will adduct and extend the shoulder. And here you can see why. Because of long head and long head only. Because long head only does attach to scapula. So long head only will cross the shoulder joint. And we can see that it goes under slight angle. So again, not exactly 45-degree, maybe like 30-degree angle. And that is why it can produce adduction as well. Adduction meaning it can bring arm closer towards the body. As well, of course, extension of the shoulder. And radial nerve for Triceps Brachii. And here you can see the axillary nerve. He actually mentions that axillary nerve, long head. For the longest time, it was considered that Triceps Brachii is innervated only by radial nerve. But here you can see this is this actually comes from his newest book. So I think his later books actually did say that it is innervated only by radial nerve. I don't know. I have to check that twice. I don't want to say anything wrong here, but I think that's what it was. But anyways, the newest research says that long head is innervated by axillary nerve, so it is not innervated by radial nerve exclusively. Let's switch back the video. Let's have a quick chat and let me show you these actions one more time on myself, so it's a little bit clearer. Let's turn the mics on. Let's have a quick chat. Let's go over the actions, and that's about it. Yeah, sorry today. It's like that beginning was kind of rough, and I feel a little rushed today. You know, like I feel like I'm a little behind. So maybe a little like that information is coming in a little bit more chaotic. So sorry about that. But I think we covered it all. I think we did pretty good. So regions, insertions, actions, nerves, nerve supply. Try to. This is really good start for putting the pieces together. So putting that anatomy together. Try to start learning nerves as well, innervation as well. I wouldn't really worry about blood supply. Blood supply not hold that important. I mean, unless you're some kind of like neurosurgeon or whatever. Nerve supply, that's quite important. If you're aiming to really excel, I mean, if you want to be a really good specialist in your field, I give an example. Why? Dermatomes and myotomes. If you know that on yourself, for example, or on somebody at your gym or whatever, somebody has this problem of these particular muscles don't work the way they should. That's a myotome. Myotome means muscle fibers that will be innervated by that particular nerve. That's a myotome, and this is why it's really important for specialists actually to know like the nerve roots, where that starts, because it may not be the problem may not be locally where you would say, oh, I can't move these muscles. The problem actually be some nerve impingement at the neck level. Okay, that's why we need to know the roots, nerve roots, how they exit the cervical spine and where do they go. They can be actually compressed by some other structures, as I already said. Scalene muscles may compress brachial plexus, clavicle may compress brachial plexus, the short pectoralis minor may compress brachial plexus. So there are some other structures that can compress it. Nerves can be compressed locally as well. So I mean, you know, you have to think about all this stuff from this type of perspective, that it's not just muscles, you know, and it's not just, you know, like nerve, you know, innervates that muscle. It's like you have to think about that whole path where that nerve goes. And once again, nerves do innervate muscles, and nerves do provide sensory function as well. So, and that is dermatome, right? So that's so that will be basically a patch of skin. So I can't really recall that from top of my head. I knew all that stuff. I had to review that a little bit. But like, let's say, for example, medial forearm, for example, is innervated by these particular nerves that come off of these particular roots, and that's the sensation, right? So that's like you pinch yourself, or you know, like you put the needle into your skin or something, or like hot cold sensation, all that type of stuff, right? So and then, you know, there's going to be somebody that will say, oh, I can't, you know, this patch of skin, I can't feel it, you know. So I mean, it could be again local problem, or it could be a problem at the nerve root, right? So and this is, I mean, I'm just giving you some ideas, some examples why it is a good practice. I mean, if you can remember the nerve, remember it, and then, you know, like you can go step further, you know, start to think about those myotomes, dermatomes, all those patterns, and it's quite interesting. So there are specific tests how to basically distinguish between where the problem lies. Is it a local? First of all, I mean, you know, you should be able to figure it out as a specialist. Is it a problem at local level, or is it a problem at nerve roots? And that's really, you know, and then you go step further and step further, like doing other steps. But I mean, for you as a specialist, I mean, you're not gonna be really like testing too much or anything. You know, it's a good thing to know. Like, it's really good. I mean, for example, like for Edgar's, he's a runner. For him, it would be probably a little more interesting to learn about sciatic nerve and how all that stuff goes. And every once in a while, there's gonna be some kind of numbness, tingling, something like that down the thigh or whatever. If you know dermatomes, myotomes, it's quite easy to figure out what's happening. You know, and maybe just a local compression. Maybe there's some kind of misalignment at the spine. Maybe, you know, something happened. You know, there are so many different options, different possibilities. What do you think about the arm? So was that okay? Was that like more or less understandable?
Yeah, I think it was totally understandable. Like you said, it's quite an easy part of the body, maybe. So I think I understood everything.
But what about Elena, all this?
Yeah, I'm looking forward to hear about training.
Oh, very good.
Training part.
Okay. Oh, very good. Elena, anything from you?
No, it's so far so good.
Training
I
part.
like that because then we zipped everything. Like everything was clear. No, more just about the team.
Okay, let's talk about biceps. Okay.
Okay.
Let's talk about biceps. So short head and long head. So first of all, let's start with that. Okay, so I mean, I'm using my arms. It's just I don't want to go back to that three-dimensional body. So first of all, like if you see a separation between, if you feel separation, that requires training. I mean, there's no way possible that without training that separation is going to be there. So that if you're able to feel long head and short head, that means, you know, like you're either, like your work is either physical, or, you know, you're I don't know, you're going to gym steady or something, you know. Same to triceps, same thing, right? So like if you can distinguish heads, separate heads, that, I mean, there had to be some kind of training there, you know, at any kind of level, anything. For training, so actually I want to hear from you. What type of training would you suggest for biceps? How would you isolate biceps? And how would you isolate, okay, Biceps isolation, that's one thing. How would you isolate biceps long head, and how would you isolate biceps short head? So that's for Uldis.
What do you mean by isolate? It's like you concentrate more on the specific muscle, you mean? So, it's like that, yeah.
No, I mean, well,
it's
the flexion of the shoulder, flexion of the
elbow, yeah.
Yeah, but flexion of the shoulder as well, right? Flexion of the, let's talk about the elbow. Flexion of the elbow is not done only by biceps. There are other muscles that do that, brachialis, right? So how would you isolate biceps in particular? And how would you isolate biceps long head, and how would you isolate biceps? And so, like, let's say, for example, your goal is to train long head in particular, only long head and only of biceps. How would you isolate that? I mean, maybe you have heard about it somewhere, or read about
you can make, I think it's the best way is to make variations, but I can't say it's some kind of the training methods or is better than other one. It's like you have to constantly variate. But if you're talking about the specific, the long head or the short head, you have to change the position of the arm, how you rotate the arm, and where you set the arm. There's many ways you can set your arm in the front. You can be close to the body, like this position, and it can be back extension, and then you also can work on the lower part, and the middle part, and top of the part, the biceps. And if you pronate, you can like say hammer hold. Then you're actually working on this kind of part, and then if you pronate like this, making your finger up.
That's supination. That's
supination. Yeah, it's like you supinating the arm and making up. Then you concentrate more on this specific. You can see when you pronate the arm, the biceps be activated. And if you want to isolate, you have to just put something. It's like a squat bench. It calls when you put something to not to move so much the other muscle group to help to make the movement. But I can say that this is the part when you have to be already in a very good condition. You have to be trained with the basic exercises, like when you take weights and you not isolating so much the muscle. If you're like just beginner and you begin to isolate the muscle, it's not going to be very effective. I think you have to work more on those basic movements. You take a barbell, for example, and then you make a head weight with the progressions, and then you include the more joints, like you say, the shoulder, elbow, it's coming to help, and then it's like a little bit of cheating process and something like that. And when you develop some kind of the basic strength, then you can go forward and make some isolation, what you're talking about. I think it's what you mean now, to make all those parts.
Well, I mean, this would be actually more.
Okay. I mentioned something.
Yes, yeah.
I think if you want to isolate long head, you can just perform the abduction of the arm, because the abduction is the only action that is performed only by the long head. No.
That's really good thinking. That is very good thinking. Hang on a minute. Just a second. my my dog escaped.
Oh, jailbreak.
We're back. Back on track. Okay, so that's very good thinking, Edgar. So adduction, very good. There's this like ongoing debate about isolation. Why? Very good point from Uldis as well. Why should we isolate muscles, especially for beginners? Well, first of all, let's say like the whole biceps as a whole. When you're you shouldn't be extending like the back, for example, right?
Of course.
You shouldn't be really involving any chest muscles as well when you do that. So like a really good way is the so-called preacher curl. Basically, what you were saying, yeah, like there's this
Squat bench. Yeah, you put the elbow in the front.
Yeah. There's that plate, and then you can basically fix your elbow so elbow doesn't move. To isolate heads, to isolate particular heads, where would that be beneficial? So that's talking myotomes, dermatomes, right? So like let's say for example there's something happened, some kind of accident, like whatever, like there's a particular nerve that's somehow severed or something, maybe a cut or maybe some kind of, I don't know, like who knows, right? So and there's this particular muscle bundle just not working, so you want to target that specific muscle bundle to get that, get it back, get it back going. To distinguish between long head and the short head of the biceps. So for long head, remember this. Basically arms like this, right? So between full supination and between full pronation, arms like that, and elbow back. That will isolate primarily long head. Okay, so if you first of all, if you will bring your elbow behind your back, that will already target long head a little bit more. And if you will bring your hands right in between, kind of like between full supination and between pronation, either right here, right at the chest level, or like even more so right there. So this targets a long head right there. Not like this, not like that, like this. That is long head action. The short head action, a little bit more elbow, a little bit more towards the front and in supinated position right there, like that. That will be more short head. It's just the kinesiology. It's like you're pulling strings, right? So I mean, like the way it works, that particular hand placement, it will be like only that particular fiber bundle is gonna act on it a little bit more, right? So basically, think long head, just as for the attachment points as well. Like it's think long head of the triceps, long head of the biceps, long head of the triceps, the infraglenoid tubercle, long head of the biceps, supraglenoid tubercle, long head of the biceps goes right across it wraps around the joint, really. It goes from the top and it inserts into that glenoid tubercle. Short head, straight up at that coracoid process, right? So, I mean, really, it doesn't look that short, especially, but it is short there. So, like, I mean, even here, you can see, like, I mean, this looks kind of longer, actually, but this is the short head. This one is short head. Long head is the one that's a little bit more laterally. And then, well, here, right there, this is actually short head. It looks longer, it looks bigger, but that's actually short head. The one that goes straight, kind of like towards the armpit, that's the short head. The one that's a little bit more towards the side, that's the long head. Actually, it goes right on top of the joint, and it will insert into the supraglenoid tubercle. For isolation, once again, elbows behind the back. and mid position. That will target only I know, obviously, like the dumbbells or whatever, that is how you will isolate long head. You can go only elbow behind, and like supinate or pronate or whatever. If you put elbow behind the back, that already isolates long head a little bit more. If you supinate, that will isolate short head a little bit more. That's just the way it is, because short head, once again, short head has that angle a little bit. It has this kind of, it doesn't go straight up, it goes under slight angle. That's why it can create this a little bit more, that supination, right? So if you supinate, it will target short head, not long head. And once again, like on your body, short head actually looks like long head. But the one that's more medial, that's more closer towards the body, that is short head. The one that's away from your body, more lateral, that is actually long head. So
what
so
do you
that's
suggest, Dennis? What do you suggest in a training process? Should we concentrate to those two separate heads, or we just like?
I would suggest to separate individual muscles. Individual heads, not so much. I gave an example where that would be appropriate. It would be appropriate if there's some kind of injury, some kind of somebody goes through a rehab that has to specifically, when we will talk about the knee, when we will talk about lower limbs, like I can, oh man, I have such big experience with that, and like a lot of knowledge with that, how to isolate particular parts, particular muscles. So like I'm right there, like I'm a live example, and there are like millions of other people just like me. Actually, unfortunately, one friend of mine just recently tore his ACL, and so he's asking me all these questions. So right there, like rehab anterior cruciate ligament, it's perfect example. We're not talking about the arm, we're talking about different region, but that's pretty much like, that's the question you're asking. Why would you need to isolate this particular muscle? With something goes wrong with the knee, it's 100% that your lateral thigh, okay, so lateral thigh meaning away. So this portion here is gonna get stronger, medial thigh is gonna get weaker. So, and that's where we will need to particularly strengthen vastus medialis, so medial portion of the thigh. So all these muscles really will have to, will need strengthening, but vastus medialis in particular, and that's when there are some specific ways how to target that specific. Only that head, really, because it will tend to get weaker and weaker and weaker and weaker and weaker through your injury, through your like you won't be using that leg for that much. Really for like 1 month or 2 months, and that's already enough for that atrophy to start to happen. So like after 1 month. And, well, we're not really talking about arm at all, but I just want to.
I get the point.
Yeah. So we will rely on other structures. We will rely on passive structures, and there is a huge passive structure on lateral thigh, iliotibial ligament. So we will rely on that quite extensively, and medial thigh, we just won't use it. So for biceps.
Is this so common to the arms too, or it's more like
Yeah, I have heard about tendon ruptures. Actually, somebody from academy had that. Not academy, sorry, my college.
Okay.
So complete rupture, like of the tendon. Like it could be either one of them. They put it together, and of course after that you need to strengthen. Eventually when the time comes. So you need. It's like it's very really. It's for these specific cases. For somebody that's just training. Like at your class, or isolate the muscle. Don't involve other structures. So first of all, like you see this everywhere. The way they do. do this one, you know, like, I mean, that can't happen, you know.
That's a problem with the quality. Yeah, that's another thing, you know.
Yeah, so that, I mean, there's no use to it. I mean, absolutely. And first of all, like that means that the weight is too much, like way too much. You know, like, so for somebody, I mean, I don't know, like I go to the gym, like I don't go to the gym that often, but when I go, for biceps, I would use on myself 25 kilograms. You know, I mean, that's it. I mean, like, why would you need more? Well, I mean, you know, like for my body, maybe maximum 30 or something, but like really 10, 25, that's actually I go like do supersets like 20, 22 and a half and 25, something like that, in that range. I see people going like 30, 35 and they're like doing all that stuff, you know, like what's the point? There's no point. There's, you know, like there's no. Well, what do you think about that? This is your field.
Of course, there's always going to be to people some doing some crazy stuff, you know. It's a basic, you have to learn the anatomy, the biomechanics, you know, and then you have to understand. And the best and the most important thing is you have to feel it. And by that I mean that you already have to perform with a low weight. I can take a 10 kilograms and train out my ass, I'm sorry, but I can do it because I can feel my muscles already. I can engage those muscles because it takes time actually to those nerves start to feel more, you know, the specific parts. And actually I can feel those details when you separate them. You know, that's why I make very much of variations if I'm training specific, like for arms. My point is that arms is the easiest way, actually. That's why everyone trained arms. that's very easy to feel, very easy, very fast growing, and I don't know, maybe it's about those neural connections, and I don't know, it's your field more, but it's very easy. And if you want to learn something of how to feel better your body, arms is one of the first thing to start. But the technique is the first thing you have to learn. Actually, with a very, very low weight, to start feeling those muscles. And if you're on the right track, there's not going to be all those moments, because if you start to do those crazy things, you don't feel it. You just don't have the signal that you feel the muscle. You just, yeah, I can agree that it's very good to make this cheating process in the last few reps. If you're working with the weights, like submaximal, go over the line where you can get injured. You know what I mean? It's very, very. It's like professional athlete can include a little bit of cheating, like you were saying. And then, anyways, it can be like those weights where you can injure the other joints or something, or muscles. So I think it's very, very important to learn the thing you're talking about now, the anatomy first. You understand what you're training, feeling the second, technique, and feeling the third. You know, that's it. And then you separate.
Very good. That's really good. This is right on. It's like exactly. What do you think about, like, so we talked about biceps, okay, so that's anterior compartment, and you know, brachialis, coracobrachialis, as I said, coracobrachialis, not all that important. Brachialis is going to be the strongest flexor as it is, so it's not really, there's no point to isolate that, so it's big biceps. For anterior compartment, I would say, like, training wise, it's all about engaging either long head or short head of the biceps or muscle as a whole. That's anterior compartment, like the training wise. What do you think about triceps from your own, like, perspective? What do you think? What's the best way to, like, the best exercise, or, I mean,
you know, the best exercise, yeah, I get the point. You know, the best exercise is where you can stretch, have the best stretching of the muscle and contraction of the muscle, and where you can put the weight, you know, like basic exercises. And for the triceps, the best I found, actually, it's for me, is a French press. That's the one thing. And then the extension on the block, you know, when you extend the arms like elbows, you hold tight, nothing moves so much, and then you extend the arms. But the most important thing, triceps is very easy, you know, and it's very strong. You just progress very easy.
That's the easiest one. It's like
That's
for
the
me,
easiest.
for example, it's the easiest one to train.
Yeah, but that's it. That's really is. That's why I can see a lot of people just train the arms, you know, and triceps especially. Almost every training, what doesn't make sense actually. But the best exercise I found that it's like French press, or you can make a lot different kind of, you know, but you can't move shoulder, and you have to hold your elbow very close, and then you extend the arm as much as you can. And here it has to be the best stretching point where you stretch the arm and then
that's another really good point. If you work out, you always, this goes for everybody. This goes for Elin, for Edgars, right? And I'm sure Edgars knows this as well. You have to stretch the muscles. No matter who you are, like your bodybuilder or runner or whatever, if you worked on that particular group, would that be running or like, let's say you did arms or you did upper body, you have to stretch those structures afterwards. So like, I mean, especially for bodybuilders, that's not that all that popular, they just go.
No, but it's very important.
Yeah, so you have to stretch those structures out. There's like a lot of theory behind it. Why do we do this and all that? For triceps, as you said, this is one of the best ones for sure. The cables, right? So fixate your elbow and just press it down, right? So press it down, and as you do that, you actually best way is to separate arms like that. And the most important thing is that your elbow doesn't move, right? So your elbow doesn't move, and basically just pure extension. Triceps, that's the funny thing about triceps. I gave an example lectures ago how our body really is designed for climbing trees. How all our internal rotators, flexors, and adductors are actually stronger. So same goes for upper body, same goes for lower body. So this is our strongest motion naturally. But there is something really funny about triceps. Triceps is just naturally strong muscle. Yeah. It's really easy to train that, and I mean I think it's because it's upper limb, and in our daily stuff, pushing movements, pushing away, something like that, like that type of stuff. That's quite common movement, right? So there is quite a few times, maybe, I mean, like through your daily life, where you would catch yourself doing something, pushing away, So it is quite common movement, right? But other than that, really, I mean, this is our strongest right there. So just bring your all your limbs internally in internal rotation, flexion, and adduction. Those are the strongest motions. All those muscles that perform those motions are the strongest muscles of your body. Triceps is it is this weird exception, So I mean, there has to be really good balance. These are antagonists, right? So they perform opposite work. Synergists, once again, synergists are all the muscles that do the same work, right? So brachialis, Coracobrachialis, and Biceps Brachii perform the same work, right? So that's the flexion of the elbow, flexion of the shoulder. Extension, that's opposite, right? So there should be even balance. There should be equal balance. Any kind of disbalance is not good. Like, I mean, if for some reason triceps is starting to become bigger and overpowering biceps, that's not good either, right? It's there has to be this balance, And I think this is from our probably a little bit of martial arts background as well, me and Uldis, right? It's a lot of push-ups, right? Just tons of push-ups, just push-ups, And that's like for me, same thing. The triceps just like way stronger actually than biceps. Well, biceps as well, but triceps, it just for some reason, I mean, there's no need to train that really. I mean, it's the other structures almost. It's just kind of it's one of these really weird exceptions. It is.
And if you're talking about the arms, I think that it's very important to have this intensity when you train them. Of course, in the training, I suggest that you train both of those synergists, antagonists, and then you train very intensively. You know, like the other muscles, like if you're training your back, it takes some progression with the weights, but it takes also like the rest in between, much longer than you train. For example, arms, you can make a lot of tons of supersets and everything else. Arms can take everything because it's like on the legs, you know. You use them very often, you know, every day. Like, and if you want to make some changes in the arms and progress with them, you just have to follow the progression and train them intensively. And it's very important to take a rest for at least 7 days if you train those kind of muscles. You know, you train intensively, short time, but very, very long time, like a rest to make it recover. That's what I found about if you're talking about arms, you know. But because a lot of people engage more arms, they don't feel, for example, back muscles, chest muscles, and they actually train the arms instead of they pulling something down, and again they train arms, and then they go the next training, they train especially arms, and then they go the chest muscles and pushing with the arms. Again, it's all about the arms, you know. And then they don't get the point that they don't feel the muscles like that, you know. And that's
this is, we are slowly going into this, slowly derailing into this original discussion. What is more important, to develop outer unit or inner unit? You know, like, I mean, eventually we'll go there. Eventually we'll go there, because outer unit muscles are all these primarily upper limb and lower limb muscles, really, you know. Like inner unit, that's the core. The core has to be that's the number one that has to engage the first, and that has to be the strongest. Like the core muscles should be the strongest, your strongest unit. Inner unit should be the strongest unit, which is not usually the case, right? So like there are a lot of these, you know, like plyometric, you know, type of exercises, these balance exercises. It's really just holding positions, you know, like in yoga and Pilates. That's a high value, but a lot of people just, you know, either don't like it, or it is getting more and more popular though. It's, the Pilates and yoga, it's this this new thing, and it's a good thing, you know. It's not bad, it's pretty good. But yeah, like, I mean, if you go to the gym, people usually just those energy muscles, right? The ones that will develop all the trigger points and all the problems and everything, you know. And that's so there has to be good balance between inner unit and outer unit as well. There has to be good balance, front to back, side to side, and inner unit to outer unit. Really, I mean, core has to be the first one that starts any kind of movement, anywhere, you know. So, you know, talking biceps curl or bench press or anything, absolutely anything, any move, walking upstairs, downstairs, and the inner unit fires first. Always. If you will see that in people that have this swaying gait, you know, like hips moving, hip movement, a lot of hip movement, and a lot of back movement. That's a signal for weak core. That's so a lot of shoulder movement, a lot of, like, you know, like hips, hip hikes up and down, you know, like model walk, you know how models walk, how they, like, one hip goes up, other hip goes down. That's already a sign of weak gluteus medius. Gluteus medius is going to be weak for sure on that one. That's the one that keeps pelvis parallel to the ground. So, I mean, I can give you many other examples, but it's very interesting discussion. I like to see this. Like, this is why I'm doing this. This is the reason why I'm doing these little sessions. You know, this is very good.
Awesome. Yeah, it's very interesting today.
Yeah, today it was a little unorganized at first. I don't know, something happened, but it's good that we managed to get this done. Now, from now on, I will probably make a couple of changes in this little project, but I don't know. We'll see. You know, like it's gonna be the same thing. You know, it's gonna be Friday, and this is the core. These are all core people. It's basically you three, and then you know some other people are gonna pop in, pop out, and that's that. It's good. This is very good. But yeah, like I'll probably make a couple of changes, and starting like this is the first time that I created an event, you know, like on Facebook, and that's probably how I will, you know, first of all, how I'll basically send out all these invitations like this, you know, like I'll create an event, and then you're attending, not attending, and all that, and if you have something to say it on Facebook, you know, some kind of anything, you know, suggestion or whatever, and I'll see you next week. You know, so basically I'll just create a new event, and I'll post this session online once again, and I'll probably have to cut some parts out because there was quite a bit of, you know, but yeah, and then I'll send out this invitation for the next one, and it's gonna be the same. It's gonna be next Friday, and we will probably talk about forearm. I think so. Forearm, there's a lot of stuff going on in forearm. So see, like this was quite easy. Forearm, it's not easy. There is like, oh man, it gets complicated. Okay, so I don't know. I'll see. Maybe we'll do a quick review of the arm once again, or maybe elbow joint. As I said, there are 3 joints, not 1 joint. So maybe we could talk about that a little bit more. Just the elbow structure. So we have a couple of. For example, supinator and pronator muscles that will do. Maybe I'll narrow it down to some little thing, because we can't really talk about the whole forearm. It's absolutely no way. There's something like around 30 muscles in forearm, so it's not happening. Okay, I'll see you next week. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you. See you.
Yeah.
Bye bye.